The exorcist house stood bathed in the eerie glow of the moon. A chill permeated the air, sending shivers down my spine. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the rustling leaves. An unsettling feeling crept over me. We were not alone. This place held a dark history, a history we were about to confront. The air grew heavy with anticipation. I could feel the energy shift, the atmosphere thickening. Something was coming. The house was deceptively calm, too calm. The stillness was unsettling, like the calm before a storm. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. My breath caught in my throat. A low hum resonated from the depths of the house. It was barely audible, yet it sent chills down my spine. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. Something was wrong, very wrong. A faint whisper cut through the silence. It was low and guttural, impossible to decipher. My heart pounded in my chest. I strained to listen, my senses on high alert. Another whisper, this time closer. It seemed to slither through the air, wrapping around me like a cold, damp cloth. Fear coiled in my gut. We had awakened something evil. The shadows in the corner of the room seemed to writhe and twist. They danced in a macabre ballet, their movements growing more frantic. My eyes darted around the room, trying to follow their erratic patterns. The temperature plummeted, sending a wave of goosebumps across my skin. My breath formed icy clouds in the air. I could feel the presence of something dark and malevolent. It was toying with us. The air grew thick and heavy, making it difficult to breathe. The temperature continued to drop, the air growing frigid. I could see my breath, even inside the house. This was not natural. We were in the presence of something powerful, something beyond our understanding. The air crackled with energy, a tangible manifestation of the evil that permeated the house. I felt a surge of adrenaline, mixed with a healthy dose of fear. A cold spot settled over us, a sudden and inexplicable drop in temperature that made the hairs on the back of our necks stand on end. It was as if an unseen force had enveloped us in an icy grip, and we could see our breath misting in the air, even though we were indoors. The chilling sensation pierced through our clothing and chilled us to the bone. We huddled together, rubbing our arms and stamping our feet in a futile attempt to generate warmth. The cold was not just physical, it seemed to seep into our very souls, leaving us feeling vulnerable and exposed. The air grew heavy with the stench of decay, a putrid odor that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the old house. The mist rolled in, thick and oppressive, obscuring our vision and adding to the sense of dread that had settled over us. The decaying wood creaked underfoot, as if the house itself was groaning in agony. The smell clung to the back of my throat, making it difficult to breathe. I covered my nose, but it was no use. The stench was inescapable. My stomach churned, and I fought the urge to gag. Then we saw it. A shadowy figure materialized in the darkness, its form barely discernible at first. It seemed to emerge from the very shadows themselves, as if it had been waiting there all along, watching us. The figure moved with an unnatural grace, its movements fluid and almost hypnotic. Its eyes glowed with an eerie red light piercing through the darkness and locking onto us with an intensity that made my blood run cold. The eyes seemed to burn with a malevolent intelligence, as if the creature was studying us, deciding what to do next. It was tall and gaunt, with long, sharp claws that glinted in the dim light. The figure's skeletal frame was covered in tattered, rotting clothing, and its skin was a sickly, pallid color. The claws looked capable of rending flesh from bone with ease, and I couldn't help but imagine the pain they could inflict. A low growl emanated from its throat, a sound that was both animalistic and disturbingly human. The growl reverberated through the room, sending vibrations through the floor and walls. It was a warning, a signal that we were not welcome here. The growl sent shivers down my spine, and I could feel the fear radiating from my companions. We were frozen in place, unable to move or speak as the presence loomed over us. The air was thick with tension, and I knew that whatever happened next, we would never forget this encounter. The growl escalated into a deafening roar, shaking the very foundations of the house. Pictures flew off the walls, shattering on the floor. The furniture rattled and shook as if caught in an earthquake. The entity was angry, its rage palpable. We were in over our heads. This was beyond anything we had ever encountered before. We had to get out now. Section 8, Utter Chaos. The house descended into utter chaos. Objects flew across the room with tremendous force, narrowly missing us. The air crackled with energy, the smell of ozone stinging my nostrils. We were under attack. The entity was relentless, its fury growing with each passing second. We stumbled back in terror, our eyes wide with fear. This was a battle we could not win. Section 9. A Glimmer of Hope. Just when we thought all hope was lost, the activity abruptly stopped. The relentless banging, the whispers, the cold drafts that seemed to come from nowhere, all ceased in an instant. It was as if the house itself had taken a deep breath and held it. The house fell silent, the only sound our ragged breathing. We stood there, hearts pounding, trying to make sense of the sudden stillness. The air, once thick with tension, now felt strangely light, almost breathable. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by an eerie calm. It was as if the house was giving us a moment of respite, a brief pause in the chaos. The dim light that began to filter through the windows cast long, ghostly shadows on the walls, adding to the surreal feeling of the moment. The front door stood slightly ajar, a sliver of moonlight illuminating the darkness beyond. It was a sight that filled us with both hope and dread. The moonlight seemed to beckon us, offering a way out of the nightmare we had been trapped in. Was this our chance to escape? We exchanged glances, each of us weighing the risks. The open door was a promise of freedom, but also a potential gateway to unknown horrors. Could we trust this sudden change, or was it another trick? Or was it a trap, a way for the entity to lure us into a false sense of security? The house had played with our minds before, showing us what we wanted to see only to snatch it away at the last moment. We had to decide quickly, for the silence was growing more oppressive by the second. The glimmer of hope was there, but so was the shadow of doubt. Section 10. Trapped. We cautiously approached the door, our senses on high alert. The air was thick with tension, the silence almost deafening. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside, sent shivers down our spines. As we reached for the doorknob, it began to turn slowly as if guided by an unseen hand. Our blood ran cold. We were trapped, with nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. Section 11. A shocking discovery. The door swung open, revealing a sight that made our blood run cold. The air was thick with an unsettling silence, broken only by the creaking of the old wooden door. It felt as if time itself had slowed down, each second stretching into an eternity as we stood there, frozen in place. Standing on the porch, bathed in the pale moonlight, was a figure. The moonlight cast long, eerie shadows, making the figure appear even more menacing. It was as if the night itself was conspiring to amplify our fear, wrapping the figure in an aura of dread. It was tall and gaunt, with long, sharp claws. The figure's limbs were unnaturally elongated, giving it a grotesque, almost otherworldly appearance. Each movement it made was slow and deliberate, as if it was savoring the terror it was instilling in us. Its eyes glowed with an eerie red light. Those eyes seemed to pierce through the darkness, locking onto us with an intensity that was both hypnotic and horrifying. It felt as if those glowing orbs could see into the very depths of our souls, exposing our deepest fears. But that wasn't the most terrifying part. The true horror lay in what the figure held in its hand. Our hearts pounded in our chests, a primal fear taking hold as we tried to comprehend the significance of the object it clutched so tightly. In its hand, the entity held a small, silver locket. The locket gleamed faintly in the dim light, its delicate chain dangling from the figure's clawed fingers. It was a stark contrast to the menacing presence of the entity, a small piece of innocence in the midst of overwhelming darkness. It was the locket we had found earlier that day, a discovery that had seemed so innocuous at the time. We had stumbled upon it while exploring the old house, its intricate design catching our eye. Little did we know that this seemingly harmless trinket would be the key to unlocking a nightmarish reality. The locket that belonged to the young boy who had been possessed in this very house all those years ago. The boy's tragic story had become a local legend, a cautionary tale whispered among the townsfolk. The locket was a tangible connection to that dark past, a relic of a time when innocence had been corrupted by malevolent forces. And as the entity raised its head and let out a blood-curdling scream, the sound reverberated through the night, a chilling cry that seemed to echo from the depths of the underworld. It was a scream that spoke of unimaginable pain and suffering, a harbinger of the horrors yet to come. We knew that this was only the beginning. The scream was a warning, a signal that the nightmare was far from over. As we stood there, paralyzed by fear, We realized that we had unwittingly stepped into a battle between light and darkness, a struggle that would test our courage and our resolve. The discovery of the locket had set in motion a chain of events that would change our lives forever, plunging us into a world where the line between reality and nightmare was blurred. And so, with hearts heavy with dread, we braced ourselves for the trials that lay ahead, knowing that our journey had